Hey, quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, hello to all from all here at the Big Mark Thompson Show. I'm Big Mark Thompson. Nice to meet you. This show, if you're new, we just passed a pretty substantial landmark for us. You know, we were just trying to find 11,780.
I just want to find 11,780.
And we did find 11,780 subscribers. And if you're a new subscriber and a new participant, welcome. This show is a combination radio, television, internet, web-based thing. And so meet Kim, who is our stalwart news person. Also, when I'm not around, Kim will step up and sit in the captain's chair.
Kim, how are you?
And Tony is...
Thanks, Tony.
He's riding the board today. Yeah.
Turn up your mic a little bit. It's a little low, Mark.
What's that?
Your mic's a little low. Bring yourself up a little bit.
Well, you know, Tony, you always say my mic's low, and then I listen back to the show, and my mic's blasting away. So
you're the host.
Tony and I have a little bit of an argument on
Thanks, Tony.
I don't know what angered him.
We'll do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live.
Exactly. But it is true, Tony, that the levels are, I'm struggling. And so I deliberately pulled it down yesterday, and I've left it in the same place. I don't want to get a big thing on this. But if it is still
chat. Chat, is this levels okay?
All right, we'll ask the chat. All of us have been fascinated and transfixed, really, by this situation with this sub. I mean, it's a submersible. We talked yesterday about the difference between a submarine and a submersible. It's a submersible, right? Because it's Titanic, because of all the lore around Titanic, the fascination with Titanic, the history of Titanic, and even the eerie coincidence associated with Titanic. You know, Titanic was this ship that had the latest technology. It was sink-proof. You know, it was completely... It was the most exciting cruise ship to ever be developed at the time. And so its fate became even more insanely historic. Since then, there's been this fascination with Titanic. Now you develop this, again, cutting-edge technology, so cutting-edge that there weren't even the certifications available to examine this craft and certify its safety in some way. In other words, the technology had outpaced the ability for us to certify it, us as a, you know, as the scientific community, reflected by us, you know. So all of these things go into the story today. And I guess the breaking news of the moment is that a debris field was found near the Titanic. This is from, who is this from?
That's Jim.
Oh, the tweets from the Coast Guard.
No, I'm not talking about, I'm
the
talking
Northeast
about
Coast Guard.
Yeah, thank you. The Coast Guard in the Northeast. It's a debris field discovered within that search area. This is by a remote vehicle near the Titanic. Experts within the Unified Command are evaluating the information. And we have been over Twitter, and we've been over, I've been just combing since really yesterday's show, and we have all kinds of stuff for you. I've put together some things, but company confirms its vehicle found debris field in Titanic submersible search area. A spokesperson for the Pelagic Research Services confirmed to CNN that its remotely operated vehicle, that's what you saw before, that ROV, was the first to conduct a search for the missing OceanGate sub on the sea floor, found the debris field. The U.S. Coast Guard announcing earlier that a debris field had been found. So there you go. As you're aware, and as we've discussed, the depth at which this submersible was examining the Titanic, or at least that was the plan, is such that very few vehicles can go that deep. That was one of the reasons this is so cutting edge. And very few vehicles then, even if you set up on the surface to rescue a vehicle that far deep, trapped on the ocean floor, are capable of A, doing it, or B, getting to that area quickly enough. We have a bunch of pieces, and I wanted to share some of them, and one of them is with the guy who had put a down payment on the trip and then decided against it because of safety concerns. That friend of Hamish Harding. I don't know what order you want to go in these, Tony. Do you have that first, maybe, or
okay? Give me a second.
Okay, yeah. Because I think all of these.
Thanks, Tony.
I think all of these are illustrative of what's happening, and also what went into it, and what the expectations were, and what the awareness was of the danger involved. So Kim actually mentioned this eerie thing, which is that one of the, well, go ahead, Kim, you can.
Yeah, I was reading that earlier. Fascinating. So the CEO of OceanGate, his name is Stockton Rush, and he's from a very prominent San Francisco family. Well, apparently his wife is a descendant of two people who died aboard the Titanic. Her name is Wendy Rush, and she is the great-great-granddaughter of retailing magnate Isidore Straus and his wife Ida. They were one of the two of the more than 1,500 people who died on the Titanic. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an eerie coincidence as well. Yeah, Stockton Rush, of course, he's a blue blood, right? He's a descendant of one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. You have that, Tony? This is, I think, this is the friend of Hamish Harding who, upon evaluating the safety of this vessel, actually asked for his deposit back and decided not to go on this trip. Here it is.
Parts of the submarine that I'd seen in the testing in the Bahamas just seemed a bit shoddy. They're using industrial piping for ballast. They're using an Xbox controller for the steering. The strip lightings, something you get at a DIY shop. Small cramped surfaces. I wasn't happy with some of the design, like the thrusters on the outside with the cables there. I thought that was a snagging hazard. But what really did it for me was they flatly refused to get any form of certification. And it seemed that they had no intention of getting any certification for going down to those depths once, let alone several times. They also had a lightning strike during one of the testings, which blew all of the electronics. You know, these things happen, but they didn't have it ended the testing. And that made me ask, well, where's the redundancy? Because it's normal in a vessel of any form that has human life. You've got redundancy. You usually have two of two. So you'd have a redundant separate system, and then you'd have two of those. But the fact that one lightning strike blew the whole thing was, well, where's the safety measures here? So just all of those things together made me think, there's a lot of risks here that I'm not able to mitigate and don't seem in control. So I pulled out at that point. That was the end of 2018. Let's be straight, it's not looking good. Oxygen's obviously very low. It's not just oxygen. The sub, let's assume it's at the bottom of the ocean. It could still be bobbing along at the surface, just unable to communicate. But that's an issue in itself, because here's another safety issue for me. It can only be opened from the outside. So if it's surface, they can't. They're still going to have oxygen problems.
Yeah. So that, I thought the key part of that was that he evaluated specifically issues he had with safety and that vessel. And the thing that I had noted at the beginning, which is that essentially, I don't know, he claims or would suggest that they avoided certification. I was saying that the technology is so cutting edge that it essentially outpaced the ability to certify it. But this carbon fiber core, increasingly, especially with the breaking news about the debris field, it strikes me that the stress And again, this is based on all this reading I've done and trying to become an expert overnight on this stuff, and also all of these different interviews with engineers, and we'll share another couple with you in a second. It strikes me that might have given away. That all the stressors, the repeated trips to the ocean floor, that stresses that hull, and it's made of carbon fiber, and it's possible that it broke apart. What else do you have, Tony? We have so many, I know, but I wanted to. Here's a report. This is a good wrap. Here's what I like about this. This is a good wrap from ABC News to kind of set up where we are, just to remind all of us how big a field it is and the assets that were brought in to try to find this submersible. Go ahead, Tony. Thank you.
Search and rescue crews dealing with treacherous weather, looking for that missing submersible. The effort's still underway, even as the clock runs out. Those 96 hours of breathable air expiring. The U.S. Coast Guard zeroing in on an area where Canadian aircrafts detected banging noises underwater with sonar on both Tuesday and Wednesday morning. But the search turning up nothing so far. Still, the Coast Guard insisting they won't give up.
This is a search and rescue mission, 100%.
The entire search area massive, twice the size of Connecticut and 2.5 miles deep. A team of experts analyzing those noises to help determine the source and the location.
The ocean is a very complex place. Obviously, human sounds, nature sounds, and it's very difficult to discern what the source of those noises are at times.
Even if the sub is found, if it's underwater, there are no ships currently on the scene that could lift the 23,000-pound Titan. Overnight, a French ship arriving with a deep-sea robot called the Victor 6000, equipped with cameras and arms that could free the sub if it's stuck, but it cannot lift it to the surface. A Navy deep salvage system is still on land in Newfoundland, days away from getting to the search zone.
People need to realize that finding them is the first step. They still have to raise them off the bottom. They still have to get them on the ship, and they still have to unbolt them.
Crews working around the clock to find those 5 people on board. Billionaire Hamish Harding, businessman Shahzada Dawood, and his 19-year-old son Suleiman. Titanic researcher and diver P.H. Narjuleh, and the CEO of OceanGate, Stockton Rush.
Okay, thank you, Tony. That's that, I think, gives you a sense of what I was speaking about in general terms before as well, which is, the assets that actually are physically capable of lifting the trapped vessel from the depths of the ocean floor, they're not even on scene in a way that would allow them to do that. And obviously we are at the end of the estimated breathable air on board. What else do we have, Tony? I thought I have don't I have an engineer in there as well? Here's another.
We have the one with the guy who former passenger one.
Oh yeah, former. Let's give a listen. All of these things, I just thought, in fragments, you'd appreciate hearing and seeing some of what we're sharing right now. So here you go. Here's another little piece.
Yeah, look, this is one of the really challenging things about a vehicle like this, is that there is almost nothing to benchmark it against. There is no other vehicle like Titan anywhere in the world. It is a one-off. To the certification and challenge. So evaluating risk for a craft like this is really difficult. We know that carbon fiber is extremely strong. It's what's used to build the Boeing Dreamliner or the Airbus A350. It is a miracle product in a lot of ways. It can be 10 times stronger than steel, but there are real questions about carbon fiber in terms of its fatigue. How does it perform at these kind of pressures and at this kind of a cold temperature after multiple cycles? It's something that's hard to evaluate. And so risk is a very difficult thing to evaluate when it comes to Titan. For us,
stop
on the
right
dives
there.
that we did,
that's what I was saying to you before, that while being breakthrough, that carbon fiber hull was something that was stressed repeatedly, and it really hadn't been evaluated under repeated stresses. Yes, they had built it so that it could withstand that depth, but how many repeated withstandings of that depth was it capable of enduring? And the answer is no way to know. So
and Mark, wasn't that the same case with the early airline industry, right? With aluminum and stuff, where planes were falling out of the sky early on because they didn't know that aluminum expanded and stuff, and they figured that out after a couple planes were, Just saying.
It's an odd fact that as these technologies emerge, it's the emerging period that produces so many lessons. And honestly, some of those lessons have to do with physics. And in this case, when you're dealing with life and death, those physics lessons can be brutal, you know. And sadly, I feel as though this is one of those cases. At that depth, you might as well be in outer space. No chance with just the slightest malfunction. Thank you, JR. You know, it's interesting you say this, JR, because I'll tell you, yesterday, I spoke with Terry Vert, who is the astronaut. You may know, people who are space freaks may know Terry Vert. He's been up to the moon, and he set and I did mention this to you a couple days ago, he did set a record with Hamish Harding, the aviation record. You know, they're both aviators, right? Harding's an aviator, billionaire aviator. And I talked to Terry Vert yesterday, and Terry Vert spoke about the fact that, in a way, going down to the depths of the ocean, the way this submersible was, the way it was going, is more difficult from a pressure standpoint. I'm talking about pressure on the vessel than going into outer space. And here's what Terry Vert said. He said, you know, Mark, the difference between going into space and going down below, you know, to inner space, if you will, the ocean, is that there's only a change once when you go into outer space, right? You go from the Earth's atmosphere to no atmosphere. So once you've allowed for that, you're good. When you go into inner space, underwater, the pressure is changing and becoming more intense as you go down farther and farther. And the way in which you prepare for that may have to change, may be sufficient on dive 1, may not be sufficient on dive 15. And so I thought that was fascinating. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, JR, the outer space and kind of inner space or underwater challenges that they face. Tony, what else did I give you? I forget. I kept sending Tony stuff. I think all of these things are, I thought on that same cut, this is Pogue, who went down, nervously went down, was to go on the Titanic dive, Kim, but he was someone who ended up, because of bad weather, going on sort of like a consolation dive with them.
Right.
I suspect he was on some level grateful, you know, that he didn't have to go all the way down. But in any case,
and then even the consolation dive got canceled.
So here's Pogue. We just lifted part of his conversation, I believe, with the BBC or with the Canadian Broadcasting. Go ahead.
I mean, really, there's only three possibilities. Possibility number one is that they are on the surface somewhere, bobbing away. This sub has 7 different return to the surface backup systems. So sandbags that drop off, lead pipes that drop off, the legs can drop off. There's an air balloon, there's thrusters, and one of them works even if everybody on board is unconscious. So one of them is a timed release thing that sends the sub to the surface after X amount of hours. So maybe they're out there bobbing away, but remember, they're bolted in from the outside. So they have no way to get out or get more air. So that's terrifying thing number one, is that the Coast Guard is just looking for a white capsule in 900 miles of whitecaps. The other possibility is that they're underwater. And that's even scarier, because even if they're alive, if they're down there, even if we find them, if they're down there, we have no way to get them back up. There's no submersible that can reach those depths that can be brought to this site in time, let alone that has towing capacity. They don't. A submersible is not a submarine. A submersible doesn't have very much power. It has to be carried everywhere on a ship. And so it couldn't tow this thing to the surface.
So that what you've just outlined is what every official is saying is the worst case scenario. If it's on the seabed way those thousands of meters below and unreachable. And of course, that's why race against time comes into play in the discussion about how much oxygen they have available to them. The capacity we had in mind would be 96 hours through until Thursday. When you were in the submersible, I mean, did you discuss oxygen supply? Was it clear around you what the sources of breathing air were, David?
Very, very clear for me because I'm kind of a techie and I really wanted to know. So there are carbon dioxide scrubbers. These are the same things they have in spacecraft to convert CO2 back into oxygen. If those fail, there's a backup system of scrubbers. They look like fly strips that can be hung from the ceiling in an emergency. And if that fails, there are oxygen tanks, like scuba tanks, under the floorboards. So, and the 96 hours thing, by the way, is what the company says is the total of all these systems. So, but it has never been tried. It's a calculation.
Yeah, we know that now, right? Some of what he said we're aware of. I think it was interesting to hear Pogue speak about how they did have so many redundancies built into getting them back to the surface. You know, that was, you have to be, I think, both encouraged if you're about to go on a mission like this and intrigued by the fact that they did, you know, there's a sense we have looking at this likely tragedy that it was a slap together job. We've heard about the, you know, the Atari or PlayStation command thing. There, we featured some of the flaws and soft spots in the ramp up to today with different analysts looking at the technology, both the sophisticated technology and the kind of rudimentary technology. But rudimentary would be a ding word, I guess. But the idea somehow that it was a slap together job isn't quite fair. They did build in redundancies of the sort that Pogue just referenced to get them back to the surface. And it's for that reason that I came around to, again, my armchair, you know, physicist, mariner thing that I was doing, having looked at all of these conversations, having read all of this stuff, that the hull must have given way. Yeah. Because there are so many ways to get this thing back up to the surface. And maybe indeed it was trapped somewhere down there. The debris that they found would seem to support the hull having given way theory.
But here's the question then. What was the banging?
Yeah.
Were they alive? Did the banging happen? Was it in the water too long that the hull finally gave way? Or was the banging something else?
According to rumors, they think maybe just be the Titanic wreckage still just doing its thing, too, is one theory floating around.
That's why we played you that one thing where the spokesperson said, and I forget who the expert was, who said, you know, the sea is a complicated thing and these noises can be from a lot of different things. I mean, those of us who are kind of new to the party, it's like, well, hey, that banging, and that's got to be them. And we also say it hopefully. We want it to be them. But I think the realities are probably something else, as Tony says. Yeah.
Some more information. I just think it's really interesting about Wendy Rush's great-great-grandparents. That, and she, by the way, worked, Wendy, as the communications director for Ocean's Gate. I said retail magnate, but I didn't mention that Isidore Straus was a co-owner of Macy's.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And they were featured, their characters were featured in the movie Titanic. And here's how it ended for them. This is sad and human and fascinating to me. On the night of April 14th, after Titanic hit the iceberg, Isidore and Ida were directed to Lifeboat 8. But the aging Isidore refused to board the lifeboat while there were younger men being prevented from boarding. This according to the UK National Archives. Ida also refused to get into the lifeboat, saying, "Where you go, I go." Her maid, Ellen, was put into the lifeboat, and Ida gave Ellen her fur coat, saying she had no further use for it. Isidore Straus's body was recovered and interred in New York. His wife, Ida's remains were never found.
So this is interesting. Her her body was recovered. So it was recovered.
His body was recovered.
His body was recovered.
Yeah.
And this, this is where I don't know a lot about Titanic, I guess. Recovered when? Like, recovered how? They recovered it from the wreckage?
I assume that there were a lot of bodies floating on the surface, perhaps.
I see. Okay.
When they rescued all the people, and I'm going from the movie, right? There were all the dead people floating too, clinging to things. It was cold. It was, whatever. And maybe they found him under the surface. Maybe they found him on the surface. I don't know. But yeah, he was recovered.
That makes sense. Maybe they found on the surface. Wow,
she was not.
What a tragic end. The whole thing is tragedy wrapped in tragedy, and we have a fascination, as I was saying, with this tragedy. We have a fascination for all the reasons that we've mentioned and more, right? And there was wealth and privilege associated with the original Titanic mission. Look at the cruise I'm talking about. The Titanic launch was this celebrated, amazing technology, and this cruise ship, which was, a ticket on board was sort of unattainable. And I wasn't aware that these sort of, is that them in the
so that's from the movie. That's their characters in the movie, where they lay down on the bed and they hold each other and they die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
and that was her great-great-grandparents. It's maybe that has to do with the fascination with her husband and her over the Titanic. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll watch this for you. The debris field has been found, supposedly, and we'll know more. Clearly, today represents a critical moment in this entire thing, and sadly, it's a moment of reckoning with what is likely a grim reality. I don't know any other way to put it. So, anyway, that was some of what we found and what we felt might shed light on this entire thing, both from engineers and reporters and those that actually been on board. And so we can revisit it later if there's time. But for now, we'll just watch this and continue to watch this breaking news situation. You couldn't bring more assets to this search than they're bringing. And this is the most amazing marshaling of assets, you must say, in the modern age in terms of a recovery. I would suggest that this is unprecedented. So sadly, it just doesn't seem sufficient.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim's news is upcoming. I'll give you a little San Francisco news. We come from the world of San Francisco radio originally before we moved into this YouTube environment. And so those of you who like to hear stuff about the Bay Area, you found a great show for you, because we keep strong ties to San Francisco and the Bay Area, and we're rooting for the comeback of the city, even though we do feature a lot of nasty stuff. But this has to do with a celebrated building in San Francisco, this Millennium Tower. Now, if you're new to Millennium Tower stuff, know that this is a super exclusive building in the city. It's where, like, Joe Montana, the Hall of Fame quarterback, live. And who else lives there, Kim? Like a bunch of high-profile actors and rich people and dot-commers. Techie people. So the thing, and they buy into this amazing building, right, Millennium Tower, and they find out what, Kim?
It's tilting and sinking.
It's tilting and sinking, exactly. And so they begin this complex, again, it's physics, it's geology, it's all of this science to try to stop this building from, they considered everything from continuing to list to one side to literally collapsing, right?
And then when they thought they were going to fix it, it got even worse. And it didn't work at all. And we're talking gazillion-dollar fixes to this thing. So then they had to bring in somebody else. They had to revamp how they were going to fix it. Yeah, it was a mess. Total mess.
The Millennium Tower announcing Wednesday, not the tower doesn't announce it, the people at the tower, that engineers and construction workers have succeeded, in quotes, in stopping the 58-story south of Market High Rise from tilting and sinking, everybody. So there it is. It stopped sinking, they say. They say that the perimeter pile upgrade has recovered nearly 1 inch of tilt so far and will continue to recover more in the coming months and years. In other words, it's tilting back to where it should be, everybody. How about that? They didn't say where, at what point the building's tilt will be fully corrected. It is tilting more than 29 inches at Fremont and Mission Streets, apparently. Its northwest corner.
I just feel like in a city where earthquakes have been a problem in the past, perhaps living in a tilty, sinky building is not, ideal, maybe.
Well, then there are always these weird stories where it's the tilty, sinky building that survives the quake. You know what I'm saying? I really must tell you. Yeah. I don't know. But they worked with the Department of Building Inspection, they say, a panel of experts, of course, hired by the city to ensure that the tower and its 419 condominiums remained safe for tenants to live in during this construction period. The skyscraper was built in 2009. It's the tallest residential building in San Francisco at 645 feet. Its tilt was first reported to the public in 2016 when it was revealed to be leaning 24 inches west and 7.9 inches north.
There's never been anything like this.
So since the efforts to remedy the situation have undergone numerous starts and restarts, the building is part of many lawsuits, as you might imagine. But they say now that the Millennium Tower has stopped sinking and it has stopped tilting. It's actually now tilting back. So good times, everybody. It's the word.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
Yeah, it is. I don't know about fun, but all right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let's check in with Kim. We'll get some news, sort of a sense of magnetic north. Then we've got some comments to look at. Did you see the hostile comments yesterday about, I sent them to you, Kim, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a chance to, I like to always respond to hostile comments as well. If you want to reach us, we're the Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. That's how you reach us. And I'll tell you how you can contribute and do all that stuff with the show and support us because we're crowdfunded. We'll tell you about that later. But for now, Kim's news, and then I do want to get to Jefferson Graham. It's Tech Thursday. David Katz, did I mention he's going to join? There's a lot of stuff going on today. A lot.
It's a big show. It is a big show.
It is a big show, and I want a little big show energy around here, okay, everybody? I need big show energy, all right, Tony? I don't know if you have big show energy, Tony. Can I just say? You've got energy. Don't get me wrong. Okay. I just don't know if it's big show energy.
Thanks, Tony.
I can.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and let us begin this newscast with what Mark was just mentioning, which is the debris field found within the missing submersible search area. The message from the Coast Guard saying experts are now evaluating this new information. Of course, the Titan disappeared on Sunday with 5 people aboard bound for the wreck of the Titanic. At this point, it may be at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, or the debris field may be what's left of it. The investigation and search continues. The Justice Department is turning over evidence in Trump's Mar-a-Lago case to the former president and to his attorneys. They are entitled to see it. And, here's where some of those boxes were found in the potty. At this point, according to a court filing, that includes testimony from witnesses before the grand jury, such as Trump's valet, or do we say valet, who is now a co-defendant in the case.
We don't say valet.
They say valet in the UK, no?
Well, do they really?
Yeah, valet.
No.
Trump's valet, who is now a co-defendant in the case, he is accused of lying to prosecutors about his role moving boxes in and out of Mar-a-Lago's storage during efforts to recover the documents. The Supreme Court is throwing out a lawsuit filed by
Think
the
of all the
Navajo.
space they're going to have in that bathroom now that they can get those boxes out of there, though. That's kind of
Did you
nice.
see that even behind the shower curtain, you can see boxes stacked up to the ceiling? They're in the shower.
Well, you know what, Kim, where do you want us to put them? I mean, we're out of room in front. I mean, you and the mainstream media, you're so angry about putting those classified documents in the shower. I mean, where are you supposed to put them? In the hallway? No. Bravo. Put them in the shower.
This is a really big mansion estate facility where there's rooms where people can stay, right? Why not just designate an entire guest room just as a file area? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just seems a little sloppy.
Hmm.
Yeah. The Justice Department is turning over evidence. Just read that story. How about the Supreme Court throwing out a lawsuit filed by the Navajo Nation regarding a water rights dispute? There's a lot of talk about this in the chat this morning. The Navajo Nation had claimed an 1868 treaty with the United States required the government to take action to secure water access for the tribe. In the majority opinion, Justice Brett Kavanaugh said the treaty did not require that from the federal government. So they rule against the Navajo Nation.
Well, those treaties.
Yeah.
They don't have a great track record of being upheld and in any way representing what the, shall we call them settlers, we're going to do. I mean, Andrew Jackson was the notorious president under whom so many treaties were made and broken, and so much native bloodshed was the result of policy toward, what they were called Indians, savages, all the rest. But so the notion that we would break a treaty is not a completely a strange one. Although I will tell you that these pacts that we've made with native peoples and now breaking these pacts and treaties in the modern era, it's not a new thing. And I recommend to you again to Google maybe I want to say it's the Dan sisters. They're in Nevada. And if you Google the Dan sisters, you'll find a documentary that I think, if you don't want to read through all the stuff, that is very moving. It's not some high glossy documentary. It's kind of a low budget thing. But these people are the Dan sisters in control of a whole area of land in Nevada. And the U.S. government had a treaty with them to maintain that land. And they had horses on the land. And I mean, they were wild horses I'm talking about. And what the U.S. government did to them in breaking the treaty and taking back the land, the U.S. government offered to buy them out of the land originally. And then the Dan sisters, having turned down that deal, saw what the U.S. government does. They offered them, I think, $1 billion for the land. And when the Dan sisters said, no, we want this land, this is the land of our people, the U.S. government did what? They came in and they took it. And it is heartbreaking. And it's real, and it's not ancient history. This isn't something that happened in the 1800s, okay? This happened recently. So I think both of the Dan sisters have passed away now, but it's worth a look.
Google it.
It's how history, again, the history of breaking these treaties repeats itself, and now the native people, they lose in Supreme Court.
Alex Murdaugh, the judge in the case, says he wasn't surprised the jury came back with a verdict so quickly. Speaking on NBC's The Today Show, Judge Clifton Newman made his first public comments since the murder trial ended in March. Newman, who sentenced Murdaugh to 2 life sentences, said in recent years, jurors don't take very long to decide after spending weeks and weeks reviewing testimony and evidence, that often these cases, the decisions come back pretty quickly. Science now, how about that? A little science for you. The spacecraft flying past Mercury is sending back new photographs of the closest planet to the sun. The Bepi-Colombo orbiter is a joint mission of the European and Japanese space agencies. It was launched in 2018 to study Mercury, but this week it skimmed over the planet and took a series of black and white photographs revealing huge craters and steep cliffs in Mercury's crust. And I know that you've been dying to know about this. Remember the feud? Sarah Jessica Parker is opening up now about Kim Cattrall's return to the Sex and the City universe.
This is terrific.
What?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me more, girlfriend. Tell me more.
Cattrall previously claimed she would not return to play Samantha Jones, but she had a change of heart about a month ago and announced she will have a cameo in the upcoming season of the spinoff.
Wow.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah.
Sarah Jessica Parker calling it a lovely nod to the character's friendship as well as the franchise's viewers.
But that doesn't mean that it's a good thing.
It is a good thing, though. You watch this franchise. Courtney could not. She's seen every episode of all of them.
Yeah,
And the movies.
I wasn't a major fan, but I didn't watch the series, but I've watched all the movies, which is weird. I know.
No.
Yeah. But there's a lot of people love this show, you know?
Oh, my God. Yeah, it's a huge hit.
And to have one of the four not show back up for the reunions and everything has been kind of a gaping hole in the lives of many people.
No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now
Who is having that conversation?
now it's resolved. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, you are.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson.
I come from regular stock.
I just want to find 11,780.
Did you really just do that? ABC knows that I feel like this. I've told them. It had nothing to do with them.
May the Spirit guide you in wisdom and grace.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
It was great. I loved it.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Can you let him finish, sir?
Yes, indeed. Welcome this guy who is he's part of our extended family, I would say. He's a consigliere, kind of like a guy who advises you and how to handle various things, has helped us get to this landmark. I don't even know if he's aware of our landmark of 11,780 subscribers, but we'll find out now. Here he is. He's the host of Photo Walks TV, and he has his Substack, which we will discuss as well. How about it for Jefferson Graham?
Hi. Consigliere. Here I am.
Yeah, I think so. Now, Tony, does the level seem odd to you? Did my level and Jefferson's level seem okay to you, Tony?
I hope.
He sounds a little louder than you, so I'll adjust it here.
He does.
Okay.
Tony.
Right, loud. I am.
Tony is. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So tell me, Jefferson Graham, you are, I think, a blessing because you are both a guy who has a lot of tech knowledge, but you also have an everyman kind of approach to things. So when it comes to dealing with consumer stuff and tech support and all the stuff that you need, you do bring a certain everyman quality to that, but you also kind of know where the bodies are buried. So my question to you is, you have a consumer tip, and you call it a huge consumer tip.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could speak to that, please.
Okay. So we're buying fewer products at retail stores where you can go in and say, I don't understand. This doesn't work. It doesn't connect. And you buy them online. And then you go to Amazon and say it doesn't work. And they say, send it back. And then that's it. Like I don't have a number on this, but I bet most of the time it's user error, that we just don't really get how to make it work. And that what we want to do in return is we want to call the company and talk to somebody. And you go to the website and it's hidden. totally hidden. How do you reach support? They don't want you to call. They don't want you to email. They just go away. You eventually get there, and you eventually find a contact, and you write to them, and they write back and they say, I don't understand. What do you mean? Take a video of it. Take a photo of it. What's your order number? What's your social security number? What's your credit card number? All this stuff. It's just constant delays. And you finally you say to them, hey, would you do a live stream call with me? Would you do a Zoom? Would you do a FaceTime? And you know what? They're going to say yes. To my shock, I've been asking this a little bit more recently, and they actually say yes. If you ask them, they will not ask you. But if you ask them, they will say yes, and your problems will go away. They'll fix the issue, and you'll have them there, and you could ask a few more questions about how to use the product and learn some things that you didn't know even existed.
Wow. So you're saying they'll FaceTime with you or they'll Zoom with you? Or what should you ask for then? What did you ask for? What should you ask for?
A video chat. You want a video chat.
Video chat you do through Google? How do you do that?
Well, in this case, it was Google Meet. In another case, it was Zoom. It just depends on the company and what they want to use. I bought a teleprompter. It's an iPhone teleprompter. And I would love to tell you I'm talking into it, but I'm looking at it, but I'm not talking into it. And I could not get my phone in there, and I couldn't get it. And the problem was this ring that I put in there, and I didn't understand. And all I had to do was look at it, and they said, oh, take the ring out, and it'll get right on there. And I got it on there. And then the other thing I learned is, okay, you put your phone in there, right? And you're looking at a teleprompter, which has everything upside down. And you need to get it right side up so that you could see it. And they said, oh, you have to jiggle the phone a few times through the gyroscope, to make that work. And nowhere else are they telling you this. But I picked that up in my little video chat. And so it was invaluable.
Wow, that's extraordinary. That really is extraordinary. But what company, if I can just ask, was that teleprompter?
Yeah, the name of the company was called Padcaster. So I did it with them, consumer product company. I also did it with Mighty Networks, which is they have a social network that they made a whole bunch of changes on that I didn't like at all, and I couldn't get anything to work. So I kept writing them, and you do a chat. You start with a chat. And that doesn't go anywhere. And you finally say, just meet me face to face, or come to the phone. I really don't care. Any way that you could actually make contact beyond the chat window. And I think people need to ask. They need to ask. These things are available to them. If they ask, they will not be volunteered.
Oh, that's terrific. I remember Jefferson Graham helped us early on with our kind of YouTube hiccups and said, hey, when you're in the chat with them, don't let them go until you really have exhausted all possibilities for solving your issues. So when they say, is there anything more that I can help you with today? Jefferson's view was you want to say, yeah, there is. The thing I originally called for. I mean, we're not through yet. You were, because my tendency was to be, I get it. I'll handle it on my own. I'll keep you posted. And you're going, no. You've got them on the line. Make them focus on your situation.
That's right. They're not allowed to hang up on you. So you need to have something resolved. And you get all those awful follow-up emails. How did you do with Nathan? Did Nathan solve the problem for you, right? And speaking of this, here's the one that's the worst, is the Apple Store. Okay. So you go to the Apple Store, you say, hey, I want to buy a product, right? And you buy the product, and then you walk out the door, and they say, how did Brenda do? Was Brenda nice? Did she smile? Did she do this? Did she do that? Did she tell you that you could have bought an iPad at the same time? Did she tell you could have bought a Mac? Did she suggest that you subscribe to Apple TV? So they're using you to think on this person that then said, you didn't upsell this guy when he walked in the door. And then she's going to get yelled at.
Wow. Well, and I always give people 5-star. I try to be, I'm a 5-star guy. You got to really, get in my way for me not to give you the 5 stars.
Yeah, you give them the 5 stars, but then there's going to be a negative if she didn't try to sell you something at the same time.
Yeah. But I hear you. That's wild. All right, let me. I love that something to try. By the way, let me just ask you, while we're mentioning different companies, Amazon, which is a clearinghouse for a lot of products that we buy, will they do it with you? Will they chat with you or video chat?
I haven't tried with Amazon. I think, I'm writing about this for the newsletter on Saturday, and I think I'm going to take your advice and I'm going to try it with Amazon and Apple. And Apple will do it. I've done it with Apple a lot. And that's also something to consider. When you have a problem, and it happens to me all the time, there's something you don't understand about Apple, and my wife will say, hey, how do I do this? And if I don't know, I say, call Apple. They have the best tech support in the world, because they don't talk to you about warranty and you're out of warranty. They'll just talk to you, and then they'll take control of your screen, which is another, that's as good as video chat. That's fine. They can see what's on your computer, and they will fix the situation for you, and they're not allowed to hang up. So Apple, definitely, anytime you have anything going on with your Mac, your phone, your iPad, definitely contact Apple.
Instagram, you say, now lets you download Reels. What is that, and why is that significant?
Okay, Reel are the 60-second videos that Instagram came up with to compete with TikTok. And Instagram, if you've been on there in the last 2 years, you know it's not people putting up photos anymore. It's 60-second, highly produced, fast-paced videos. And now, and the editing tools to make them in Instagram are really good. And I would recommend Mark do one every day with a little
Tony.
preview.
Tony was my guy. Tony,
thanks, Tony.
What's the story with our 60s? You were supposed to make the 60s happen. Yeah, Tony actually does really good 60s. He'll take a 7 or 8 minute segment, and Tony will reduce it to a 60. But
today on the Mark Thompson show, we are talking about.
Yeah, he thinks I should do teases, Tony, every day.
I
And
think
Tony
those
has
should
told
be,
me the
I
same
mean, if you
thing.
want to get deep in the weeds, those should be in the 24-hour, dead in 24 hours stuff. The stories.
In the stories.
Exactly.
Yeah, they can go in the stories too.
In Instagram stories or
coming
YouTube
up
stories?
ones.
Instagram stories.
Okay.
It's just that the Reels get better play than the stories do.
I see.
Yes.
So they have a wonderful tool in there to put automatic captions into your video, and they put big words on there, and they look really good. That's why I would recommend it for Mark. But you can now download them and upload them to YouTube Shorts and to TikTok. And so that's a really, they never should have not let you download them in the first place, but now you can download them and do other stuff. So it's a cool thing that they're doing.
Tell me about Jefferson Graham. Tell me about Amazon Prime Day. Is that the big deal that it was it ever a big deal? I'll ask you first of all. Was it ever a big deal?
Well, first of all, it's not a big deal. Secondly, Amazon says every time they've broken a new sales record. So it means something. It's just, as far as the consumer in all of us that is looking for a great deal, you're not going to find it unless you're in the market for a new Echo speaker or something of that ilk.
I see.
Where you'll get you might get $10 off. You might get $1 off a pair of socks. You might get $5 off a TV. It's so minimal that it's just not even, I don't think it's even worth looking unless you want that new Amazon product. Who doesn't have an Echo speaker at this point? Because they discounted them so heavily over the past few years.
I guess what you're saying is if it's a third-party device or piece of merchandise, it's not going to be discounted, particularly on Amazon Prime Day. But if it's an Amazon-related item, you're saying, then it will be?
Right. Always.
Okay.
You're not going to find an iPhone that's discounted. You'll not find an iPad. You'll not find an Xbox. You'll not find the hottest products. You'll find, if you're the person who goes to the dollar store looking for bargains, you might find a bargain on Prime Day, but it's stuff that most of us don't want.
That Prime Day, just for those who are curious, July 11th. I have to tell you a quick story about Amazon, though, and it's, I think, why Amazon does well. Among other things. I bought a JBL Bluetooth speaker. It's a little cylindrical thing, looks just like a tube, and it's waterproof. And this is great because I can, have it outside, and if it, it's good in the elements, blah, blah, blah. So I get it, and I didn't like the way it sounded, okay? And I felt, even with EQing and all this stuff, that it just wasn't. And it was like $136 or something. It wasn't nothing, you know what I mean? So I thought, send it back. So I am going to return it. And you can return it at Whole Foods, first of all. That's the first great thing about this Amazon thing. There are a lot of places to return it. You can return it Amazon Hub Locker, Amazon, UPS, etc. When I got there, I realized I only had the actual speaker with me. I didn't have the accoutrements that came with it. There's a charger. It really is just one thing. It's a wire or the original box that it came in. I had the cardboard box that it was mailed in, but not the original box. So no recharging cord, no original box. I thought, well, I'm here. I'll just go up to the guy. I say, hey, look, I'm so sorry. I don't have the. He said, nah, no problem. Bam, they return it. Now, when you and I were growing up, like, you had to have everything, man. And even if the box was opened a little bit too with a tear or something, they wouldn't accept the item back. Amazon's return policy is so liberal. I think it helps propel them to really great success. Would you agree?
Yeah. Do you remember Fry's, which is an electronics store in Los Angeles, and the way they would inspect it? Well, they'd put on the goggles and look down and make sure you have in the instruction manual and every cord. It was very tough. Now they don't ask any questions. They do ask a question when you return it, and it's usually things like, we got it wrong. A lot of things in there, and there's the one that doesn't work is, I just didn't like it. That's not in there. So you have to lie, basically, because, like in your case, Mark, you didn't like the sound. Well, that's not going to fit any of those categories, but that's okay. At some point, I still believe Amazon's going to be charging us to return things because it is so liberal. I go to the UPS store because I don't have a box to put stuff in, and then they put it in a box and they put it in a label and everything. And apparently UPS gets $5 for every return, so they're happy to send it back.
I didn't know that. That's wild. Hey, Photo Walks TV is the YouTube series. I saw your stuff from Ohio, I think it was recently.
Columbus, Ohio. Yes.
Yeah, it was really good, man. Really, really good. There's
Thank
a little
you.
bit of his series. You can find it on YouTube. You should subscribe, and you also have the Substack still going. jeffersongraham.substack.com. And the thing that's so good about Jeff is he finds all these people to take him around these cities. They're all too happy to take you to different sites around their town, and then you take pictures and you essentially show us the best spots in all of these different places, and always the best ways to take pictures and videos of all of these places. So
on your smartphone, right?
Yeah, your view is, don't travel heavy with all these lenses and stuff. Most of what you need you can find on your smartphone.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, man. You're a great friend of the show. We love you. Yeah. All right, Jefferson Graham, everybody, come on. How about it for our pal Jefferson Graham?
The Mark Thompson Show.
Jefferson Graham hates the drop. Never been anything like this, so I tried to. And if Albert were here, he would have made me use it over and over and over again, because that's his view. Once somebody says they don't like it, you have to just pound them with it. But I didn't have that. I didn't have a heart to do
There's
it.
never been anything like this.
I hit him on the way out. If you're just joining us, we gave you a lot about the submersible at the beginning of the show. In fact, I recommend going back, because maybe in all of the stuff that we gave you, there's some stuff that you didn't know, or some perspectives that you'll find interesting. We gave you something from one of the passengers who was to have been on board but decided at the last minute not to go for safety reasons. I say at the last minute. I mean, it's been in the works for some time. I think the deposit was returned a couple of years ago, but still, point is that this friend of one of the explorers actually evaluated things and just felt it wasn't safe enough. There is a quality of adventure to all of this and of exploration to all of this. I'm talking about the submersible mission. And if you listen to, as I'm sure we will over the days to come, and talk to those who are in the field of engineering, even aviation, and experimental science, they say you have to look at these people as explorers and as trying to press the boundaries of what has been done in the past. And so for that reason, you have to look at them as courageous as opposed to reckless. So I think that's an interesting perspective and maybe an important perspective. And so I think you're going to hear more of that in the days to come. But point is, we did the first half hour of the show all about that. So when we come back after Kim's news, David Katz joins us. We'll talk about the Trump cases. I also want to get into some politics, maybe out of, there was some, the censure of Schiff and the argument between Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. All of the madness that's happening on the GOP side is pretty crazy. Maybe Kim will have some of it in her news. But we'll definitely talk to Katz next. Did you have anything, Kim, before I press on?
No, carry on.
Okay. Tony, everything okay? Tony?
Thanks, Tony.
Tony, somebody wait,
I'm
Tony.
good.
Okay. All right. Smash the like button like a boss. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show, and this report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards. Let's start with the Coast Guard saying this debris field has been found within the missing submersible search area. Don't know if it is the submersible, but there is a debris field. The Titan disappeared Sunday with 5 people aboard, bound for the wreck of the Titanic at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. The Coast Guard will hold a news briefing at 3 p.m. Eastern, so coming up here. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the United States must work with China after President Biden called its president a dictator. Speaking at a news conference in Paris, she said both she and President Biden believe it is critical to maintain communication. Yellen noted that the U.S. also acknowledges it has disagreements with China. President Biden made the comments to a group of donors at a fundraiser this week discussing the Chinese spy balloon. Not so good for Pope Francis. He's still struggling a bit. He says he's got breathing difficulties that forced him to skip out on giving a speech on Thursday. He told a meeting of the Catholic Oriental Church that his breathing is not good. Francis noted he's still feeling the effects of anesthesia following hernia surgery earlier this month. So
yeah, he's 80s. What is he? How old is he? 83, I want to say.
Yeah, he's just not doing well. He's not bouncing back like he had hoped, I guess. Yeah. Of course, Tropical Storm Bret.
86, by the way. Go ahead.
86. Tropical Storm Bret isn't losing any steam just yet. According to the National Hurricane Center's advisory today, Bret's top winds about 70 miles an hour. So Bret's got a little strength going on.
Wow.
Bret is expected to lash the Lesser Antilles with strong winds and heavy rain this evening.
Stop picking on Bret.
Tonight before it starts weakening. So Bret's still going strong.
Yeah, I mean it's a potent system, and
Stop picking on Bret.
Okay, yeah, all right.
And to Adam Schiff, this California congressman, not sitting quietly after becoming the 25th House lawmaker to be censured. Adam Schiff calls the action false and defamatory, saying it proves he has been effective in the defense of our democracy. The resolution focuses on comments he made while leading the first impeachment of former President Trump. Schiff telling House members yesterday he'd do it again, vowing he will never be silenced or deterred from doing his duty. The 63-year-old currently running for Senate in his home state of California. No, I thought you were going to comment on that one.
Well,
I was thinking,
you know, it was it's the lunacy of the GOP now, which is this, and it's really all they can do. And it also speaks to, we can talk about this tomorrow in, I think, at greater length with Jim Avila and Michael Shore. It also speaks to essentially McCarthy being held hostage. Probably McCarthy, knows better, but this, it's utter lunacy. It's really all they can get done is this sort of political recriminatory crap, where they sanction this guy. I mean, honestly, Schiff will. It's a little like Star Wars, where was it Obi-Wan who says to Darth Vader, "If you strike me down, I'll come back even more powerful." It's likely going to help Schiff get that Senate seat. So
I don't think California voters really will look at the censure and go, "Oh, he's bad." I think we all know. We understand that it's actually a badge of honor.
That's certainly true.
Yeah.
So he can fundraise off it the same way that Trump fundraised. Anyway, but I think it reflects a real. The GOP is listing horribly. I mean, they are really unable to sort of find magnetic north in that party.
Anybody counting when you talk about the writers' strike? It's 8 weeks and counting for the Hollywood writers' strike. More than 5,000 demonstrators hit the pavement of Los Angeles yesterday for a march, hoping to pressure studios. Not sure if that's working. Many have been picketing the whole time, but this was the second biggest rally since the Writers Guild of America walked out, delaying TV and film production. About 11,000 members are demanding better pay and more residuals for streaming shows. And I think they're also looking for new rules to protect their jobs given the advent of AI technology. The countdown is on to one of the largest pride celebrations in the world. About 500,000 people are expected to pack San Francisco this weekend. Events start Saturday on 6 community stages around Civic Center Plaza. Then Sunday's parade will roll down Market. That starts at 10:30 a.m. Could go on for about 3 hours. BART, they say they're making it easier for visitors to get around by adding 2 more service lines from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m. So Pride San Francisco, here it comes. It's going to be a big one this time around. And I don't know if you're excited about this, but Musk versus Zuck. Musk versus Zuck, the cage match. Elon Musk challenged Mark Zuckerberg, to a fight after making snarky comments on Twitter about Meta's latest statements about launching its own sanely run microblogging competitor to Twitter. Didn't like that. Elon Musk responding with, "I'm sure Earth can't wait to be exclusively under Zuck's thumb with no other options." Then he said, "I'm up for a cage match if he is," to which Zuck responded, "Send me the location." So Zuckerberg, you may remember, has been studying Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I mean, in an actual cage match, I would go with Zuck.
I totally would go with Zuck. I mean, he's won competitions. He's a bit of an athlete, he is. But Musk says he has perfected a move called the walrus, where he just lies on his opponent and does nothing.
Wow. Well,
so he'll just lay on you and you won't be able to move. And he is bigger than Zuckerberg.
Yeah, well,
no.
I don't know. Yeah, that's
anything could happen here.
I gotta think that
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
I think so. I think that's a bad strategy. I'll just say, I mean, if you're counting on just lying on your opponent who has martial arts training as being the thing that's going to propel you to victory, I mean,
it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
I don't think so.
The walrus, Mark, and who are you to say who has the advantage?
You're right.
Really?
It's not the walrus. Oh no. Yeah.
Wow. The walrus is coming for Mark Zuckerberg. So I guess we all have that to look forward to. Lord have mercy.
No.
This report is sponsored by the amazing people at Tenuta Vineyards. And I am excited to tell you that Tenuta Vineyards has really one of the only female owners and winemakers in the Livermore Valley. This is Nancy Tenuta, and she has built this 18,000 square foot custom crush facility for more than 24 years, helping at least 110 clients make wine. So you see, it's not just about the Tenuta wine, which is amazing. They're also community helpers, which you would expect from an organization like Tenuta, right? Because they're just kind people. The Tenuta Vineyards, by the way, has an amazing website, and I don't know if you've seen
that's
it.
nice. Yeah.
Look at that. I mean, we're flying through vineyards and valleys, and so pretty. You can walk the property if you go out to the winery and take a look at it and just have a romantic stroll through the vineyard.
Yes, you can. I like that.
Why are you yelling?
I want to walk the property and have a romantic stroll. It's very funny you should mention those. That would be my precise agenda.
Why are you yelling?
And of course, since you'll be doing your romantic stroll and you'll be tasting the wine, why don't you just go ahead and get your discount? Because it's an exclusive Mark Thompson thing at Tenuta.
I love exclusive Mark Thompson things.
We love them.
With your iron rod.
They love us. So you just call them and you say, smash it with your iron rod. You get the 10% off at Tenuta Winery in Livermore. And here's
you get
the phone
off
number.
everything, off of the entire thing, off your entire
everything.
order. Okay.
10%
What's the number?
board.
What's the number again?
925-699-4576 at Tenuta Vineyards, Tenuta.
Wow. Good stuff.
I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, you are. I love it. I love it. I'm ready.
The Mark Thompson
Bring
Show.
on Katz. I'm excited.
It was great. I loved it.
Oh, yes.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
How about it for the first word and the last word in the law? Former federal prosecutor. Now he works for the defense. David Katz, everybody.
Great
Come
to be
on.
with you, Mark. Kim.
Oh, I hear your voice and see your face all around the world, literally. Canadian broadcasting, overseas on BBC. You're so good to, on Fox News. You're so good to be with us here on Thursdays. We really cherish our time with you. There's so much going on. Can I start with something that we haven't spoken of a lot on this show? I was kind of saving it for your appearance, and that's Hunter Biden. We're always saying, you don't talk enough about Hunter Biden. What about the Hunter Biden charges? What about the deal that Hunter Biden got? Was it a sweetheart deal? Wasn't a sweetheart deal? Give me a moment on that, please, David.
Well, sure. This is, of course, the president's son. This is the investigation by Congress is about more or less events when he was the vice president. They've made a big political issue about this. A special prosecutor was not appointed, but what happened was that under Trump's appointed U.S. attorney for the District of Delaware was investigating Hunter Biden. He famously left a laptop with some repair guy who then turned it over to some right-wing organization. Somehow it ended up in Giuliani's hands. Giuliani ran around, tried to make this a big issue in the 2020 election, I guess it was. It kind of got downplayed by the main media. The right-wing press is screaming that that's because they were selective. All of that is really not reflected in these latest charges. That was being investigated, and what happened was that Biden just kept in place the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in Delaware. In other words, he's got a right to appoint all 90-plus U.S. attorneys around the country, Mark. But instead of appointing a new one in Delaware, he left the same Trump-appointed one there to handle this investigation.
So as not to make it look like it was going to be politically influenced in some ways. That was the idea, right?
Exactly. And so that was kind of like having a special counsel in the Trump investigation, but it wasn't exactly the same thing. That's, of course, one of the political criticisms now by the right, that there should have been a special prosecutor. But the point was there was a normal prosecutor picked by Trump who was kept in place. At the end of this investigation, all he ended up bringing were 2 misdemeanor tax charges. And I do a lot of that kind of work, and I have a lot of interesting feelings about it. Just look at the tax part of the case, which I know people find sort of the least interesting. Does this really lead to President Biden? Well, obviously the taxes don't lead to President Biden in any way, shape, or form. The other charge, which is sort of interesting to people, it's confusing. So he applies for a gun, and it's part of filling out an application to buy a gun. You have to list, are you currently under the influence of drugs? Not currently, but do you use drugs a lot? There's some question like that, which basically, if you're really a drug addict or a person who uses a lot of drugs at the time, maybe not a casual smoker of weed or something like that, you're supposed to list yes. He says no. Now, what's interesting is that the political investigation and this laptop show that he was on the crack pipe, show that he was high all the time, that he was leading this kind of degenerate life at that time. So the Republican Congress members having sort of boxed themselves in a corner. Their position is that he was on the crack pipe and he was totally out of it. If he was totally out of it, then when he signed the form that said he wasn't totally out of it on drugs, he was out of it. And that would be a defense to making a false statement that he really didn't even know what he was signing because he was so high at the time. And that's sort of what his defense. And they walked themselves right into that. So what's happening with that charge, that's going to be a separate proceeding, but that one's going to be subject to pretrial diversion, which a lot of people believe there should be more pretrial diversion. And the people who say, well, what a bunch of hypocrites the Democrats are because they say they want these really intrusive, revealing applications to buy guns. And here they have a guy who got an application to buy a gun and lied on it. I thought the Democrats cared about that so much. Well, no, what they want to know on these applications, it's true that if you're on drugs all the time, you probably shouldn't be having a gun. But the ones that the Democrats talk about more, that the gun control advocates talk about more, is the people who haven't had a waiting period, the people who are underage, the people who are felons and they're buying the guns at gun shows. That's the people they want to try to restrict more. But returning to so that's going to be diverted as long as he doesn't get on drugs. And apparently he's clean these days, Hunter Biden is. He should succeed on pretrial diversion, and then the case will be diverted. He'll have
By the way, David, I don't mean to interrupt, but just on that point about the signing the form and stating various things like I don't do drugs or I'm not on drugs, whatever. My understanding was that that's a little like busting somebody on that is a little like the seatbelt law. Once they pulled you over for something else, then they look in and they see that you didn't have a seatbelt on. Okay, we got you for that also. It's kind of like a sort of an insignificant add-on. Can you, I don't know if there's a, on a scale of 1 to 10, or how significant is it? It seemed, it was described in many of the things I read as not necessarily that significant. It's a firearms charge sounds very sort of incendiary, but not necessarily the case.
To say that you're not a felon when you are a felon, or to say that you're above the age where you can get a gun where you're not, or to say that you don't have a mental history of psychosis, let's say, obviously those are very important things, and we should have a good gun control law that really enforces that. What they're talking about now, person uses drugs a lot and they don't put down check, I use drugs a lot. They say that's only been brought once or twice, like ever, Mark. That is a very rare charge. And on the major question of people who ask, if your name weren't Trump, would you be charged in any of the Trump cases? If your name weren't Hunter Biden, would you be charged in any of these cases? If his name were not Hunter Biden, he would not be charged with that gun offense. The taxes are more interesting. He made over $1 million in 2 years, Hunter Biden did, and he didn't file a tax return at all. He didn't pay any money at all. Now, in my experience, and I've done a lot of these cases, people, if the IRS knows about that and has good proof of it, those people are charged, and they're charged with felonies. Now, what you can do in a tax case, there's all these taxpayer bill of rights. So people always say that's what's ironic about your practice, Mr. Katz, is that your clients have more rights, and I try to press for them to have more rights than the average federal criminal defendant. Part of that is that I have talent and experience at that, but part of it is that I'm dealing with the IRS. And no matter what you hear, the IRS has more procedural safeguards than, let's say, you're dealing with the DHS or one of these other, federal agencies like that. And because of these taxpayer bill of rights, Mark, you're allowed to have a lot of review through the Department of Justice. So I don't want to get too inside baseball, but it's interesting. There's an attorney general, there's a deputy, and there's an associate. Those three people manage the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney's Office. They oversee the FBI. Beyond them, there are these different divisions. There's criminal, there's civil. If you remember this guy, Jeffrey Clark, who they were going to vault into being the #1 guy at Justice,
sure.
So he could say there was fraud during the election. That guy was down the ladder, just in charge of the civil division. Now, after that, criminal, civil, there's a tax division. And under these taxpayer bill of rights, you're allowed to go to the head of the tax division, and you're allowed to have a meeting with that person or with that person's designee. Now, I've done that 3 times in recent years. 2 out of the 3 times I've actually gotten to stop the federal criminal charges completely. And what was so interesting in the 2 cases where I was able to stop my client being charged with anything federally criminally is that in both cases I offered a misdemeanor, and the IRS disdained a misdemeanor to the point that they didn't take it. I mean, we were going to say he'll plead guilty to something, he'll plead guilty to a misdemeanor. And this has led a lot of people to wonder why, since and this will be a ding word, the IRS eschews misdemeanor.
Oh my God, very strong. Yes.
Why they approved it in this case. And I think one thing is that they had this prosecutor. He didn't really make the political, quote, political cases, the corruption cases, the cases that were supposed to. I mean, yes, he was a lobbyist. Of course, people gave him money because his last name was Biden. They didn't, the Saudis and the Ukrainians didn't come to you, Mark Thompson, or me, David Katz. They might have if we were Mark Thompson Biden or David Katz Biden. We all know that. We know that that happens, but it happens with so many people. Look at Trump's kids. How did Kushner get a $2 billion contract with the Saudis? Why? They just picked his name out of the phone book. They just decided he was the best investment advisor. The Saudi, the top guys advising the Saudis said, why are you investing with this guy? Kushner has no experience. He has no track record. He's charging higher commissions. Why would you pick this guy? Well, Mark, you know why they picked this guy? Because his name was Kushner. And of course, some of these people chose Biden because his last name was Biden. Not that much that his dad can do about it. What's he supposed to do, Mark? Issue a press release that says, don't anybody talk to my son? They say, what? Right. I never talked to my son about anything. I mean, that would be peculiar on its own. So my thought about this is that what happened was the defense attorney, as I would have done, said, go with the misdemeanor. I can live with the misdemeanor. You obviously have a misdemeanor charge on him because he didn't file a timely tax return. He apparently didn't file, he didn't submit any of the money that he owed. If you're making over $1 million 2 years in a row, that's a righteous case, as I say, as a felony. However, there's so much luck involved with the IRS. And, you know, this is what people always makes them crazy about the IRS. They said, my neighbor did such and such and such and such, or a guy I know in business, he did such and such and such. He didn't pay. They walked away. They did an audit. Nothing happened. The other guy got charged criminally. There is a lot of luck, and a lot of it depends how strong the IRS really has evidence. And that is often who ratted on who. You cannot believe how many IRS criminal cases come from information from the ex-spouse, right? Famously,
oh, of course, yeah.
Ex-business partner, right? The guy who dumps the girlfriend, and she's really pissed off, and so she calls the IRS and she says, "Let me tell you about my boyfriend, okay? He did this and didn't report it. He took this in cash. He's got 5 cars that are, you know, in somebody else's name, but they're really his cars, and he doesn't file a tax return." And if you get that kind of evidence, you know, then the IRS has a strong case. So whether they ever would have gotten to Hunter Biden if his name weren't Biden on this thing, the tax thing, is very questionable, Mark, whether they ever would have gotten to him. But if they did get to him, if somebody had ratted him out, right, wanted to be an IRS whistleblower, they also have these whistleblower laws, Mark, where they pay somebody a part of the recovery if they rat out somebody else for tax crimes. So if they had gotten to him, over $1 million, 2 years in a row, nothing paid, timely, and no tax return filed at all, that certainly would support a misdemeanor. It would indeed support a felony. So, you know, all in all, I think his criminal defense attorney did a very good job. And you have to look at something else. I think the realistic thing is that we've never had a president's very close relative, sitting president's very close relative, I believe, ever prosecuted successfully in federal court. And I think everyone assumes that if that ever happened, they would get a pardon. And the reality is, you may not like the pardon power that Trump has used, okay, but what, Biden would let his son sit in federal prison? Really? With the power to pardon him? Really? And so you got to weigh all of that. He could live with the 2 misdemeanors. They were clearly righteous because he hadn't even filed a return timely at all. Those are certainly misdemeanor charges. So all in all, I think that his lawyer made a very good deal for him. I think the reality was it's something that Hunter Biden could live with. It's something that whether he'll say it or not, his dad could live with. And life goes on. And the Republicans can scream, but I don't think they really have any evidence. They have somebody who was missing and now he's dead. I mean, of course, they're going to look around and say, oh, foul play. Is it another Vince Foster? No, Vince Foster was BS. And nobody, in my opinion, they're not going to prove that somebody killed this guy because he had the goods on Hunter Biden. They just don't have a witness. They don't have anything. They're just screaming in the House, the Republicans are, like they were just screaming about Adam Schiff. And in my opinion, they've got about as much on this Hunter Biden case or this witness as they did on Adam Schiff, which is bupkis, which is nada.
Well, the Schiff thing, of course, is GOP politics, and there's a part of the politics here, the screaming that you're talking about, the GOP screaming about Biden, that's politics too. What I'm interested in, we all love your take on it because of your ability to analyze the legal side. And what I thought among the things you just said, I just want to underscore it, was that this Trump appointed prosecutor, okay, made this deal. And the other thing you said, and it's just genius, is he also has to worry about making charges stick, right? And whether it's worth it, because at the end of it all, as you say, even if you make charges stick, there's a pardon waiting. It's like just not worth it. So on some level, if you can make a deal from the Trump appointed prosecutor's point of view, it's still a good deal. And so it's kind of a win-win is what I'm getting from you.
Well, that's what I think, about that particular case. I really do. And I don't think that it's so strange. And, I think that all of these should be teaching moments. One thing that we notice is that things happen in these cases that make people focus on them because of the personalities involved, the president's son, Donald Trump. But we should learn from them. Like one thing that I think people should learn from the Donald Trump case down in the Southern District of Florida now is how quickly they turned over the discovery mark. That's not normal, but it should be normal. There was somebody who threatened a witness in a federal case a long time ago as a mob case or whatever. They either attacked the witness or threatened the witness. So some congressman named Jenks got on his high horse decades ago and said, this is terrible. We cannot give witness statements to the defense until right before the trial. We're still living with something called the Jenks Act. Around the country, case after case, people think, well, you certainly get the witness statements. You know who testified in the grand jury against you. You know what the witnesses had to say that's supposedly so incriminating. No, the answer is no, you don't. You get something called Brady material, what's supposed to really help you, exonerate you, exculpatory evidence. But the prosecutors around the country over and over again take the position that, no, it's just a witness statement and you don't get it till like a week or two before the trial. Trump got it a week or two after the arraignment. This is absolutely extraordinary advantage, benefit that Trump has gotten. But I think what people should step back and not just say, wow, what an advantage he got. He's being treated better than anybody else in federal criminal court, is why don't we treat everybody like that? The number of people who really represent any kind of a threat to a witness are minuscule, and yet all of these people, white collar cases that I defend, they play games with discovery, they delay the discovery, and yes, you can go in front of the judge, but the judges figure, well, the prosecutor's been doing this for a long time, regularity, they don't want to have the case reversed. But I can tell you, invite any other criminal defense attorney on your show who does a lot of federal criminal work, and they'll tell you the same thing. It is a huge hassle. You don't get what they call open file discovery, whereas in some state case, you normally do get open file discovery, at least here in California. And in federal, you don't get those witness statements, which are so crucial to you. And a lot of other evidence just kind of trickles out, and it should just come out all at once so you could evaluate the case. When I was a prosecutor, I wanted all the evidence to come out. If I didn't have a strong case, I didn't want to be there. I tell the defense attorney, listen, I don't want your client to say a word, sit there, quiet. Let me give you a 2-minute opening statement on the case. We got this, we got that. We got his buddy who says that he was there. We got this other person who says his alibi is nonsense, whatever it is, right? But a lot of prosecutors, federal prosecutors, really don't have that attitude.
So when you get back down to the Florida case, and there are even hints that there could be another shoe to drop, right? I mean, that there could be maybe something in New Jersey as well with the documents there. And obviously there are other cases brewing. We talk about J6, Georgia, et cetera. But let's just go with the Florida thing, because you talk about the way, in a way, it's sort of being fast-tracked. I mean, it's on the schedule early. The evidentiary part of it has been, as you've just suggested, produced ahead of what it might be otherwise. Does that change your prediction at all about the fact that this case won't be resolved before the general election in 2024?
No, it doesn't change my opinion at all. I think that the special counsel is trying to put forth the best foot that he possibly can for the government and for the prosecution. He's trying to rebut in the minds of people who have an open mind, and I think a lot of people do, they aren't in the Trump base, that he's really bent over backwards to do everything. He's going to be in Fort Pierce, Florida, in Trump country, in front of the judge that was handpicked by Trump to hear the search case. And he had about a 1 in 3 chance of doing that, and he did it anyway. Whereas he could be in Washington, D.C., and it would be just a much better venue for him and a proper venue for him. But in terms of the case getting to trial, Trump has no interest in getting into trial. And, quite legitimately, I've gotten a lot of cases continued because it takes a lot of time to go through the evidence. We don't know how much stuff they actually have in this case. But to go through, hundreds of thousands of pages of discovery and to try to understand for each piece of evidence how it might be exculpatory, how it might help Trump, that's a legitimate argument why he needs more time. Now, he may have, I believe, an actual desire for delay. I think there'll be a drumbeat of delay here because I think it's not at all in his political interest to have his case tried before the nominating process. He's going to lose this case. This case is overwhelmingly against him. Out of his own mouth, he says that I can't declassify this stuff right now. He shows it around and says, don't get too close to it because it's secret. These are out of his own mouth tapes that he knew were being made for this autobiography of Mark Meadows that was being written. There's the whole fact that he had declarations signed by 2 different lawyers certifying that everything had been turned over. And then when they went in on a search warrant, they found over 100 highly classified documents still with their classified markings, the gold and the red on them. I mean, think of how devastating that is. And then they have his own attorney who testified against him, how, they played hide and seek, and he was told to certify that there were no high security documents in like this 35 boxes, and the 35 boxes weren't all the boxes. Meanwhile, the valet is alleged to have hidden in a conspiracy with Trump another 20 boxes so that he would certify all of them had no national security stuff in them, and he hadn't seen all of them. 20 of them were hidden from that lawyer, and the lawyer will walk through to the grand jury, and he'll do it in front of the trial jury, the same thing. There is going to be a request to reopen that, Mark, and say, look, the judge decided in Washington, D.C., but it wasn't a fair process. We didn't have a chance to really have input on the defense side. The government showed that it was the crime fraud exception. We didn't have a chance to debate that. We want to debate that in front of you, Judge Cannon, down here in Fort Pierce, Florida, and she's got a right to reverse it. That would be a big decision. If she does exclude that evidence, then they're entitled to appeal that immediately. The government can. But
so
all
again,
of that will take
not
time.
just to interrupt you, the crime fraud exception to which you've referred is the sense that the lawyer-client confidentiality can be breached if there is a crime in the process of a crime being committed. Is that it?
Yes. Well, think about this, Mark. You come to me and you say, I'm being investigated for this tax crime that I committed, a year ago, this and that. I have this defense. I have that defense. Here's what was on my mind. I have some witnesses I think can help me in the case. All of that totally confidential. My notes about it, totally confidential. It's historical, how we're going to deal with an historical accusation. And so that's the classic, the famous privilege we've had for hundreds of years, the attorney-client privilege, which you have, and you can shut my mouth. You can tell me, I don't want you to talk about the case. I cannot be your lawyer anymore. I can't talk about the case.
So in that example, what has to change for it to be the crime fraud exception?
You can shut my mouth forever as the client. But then you tell me, I still have some documents that are really incriminating for me. Where should we hide them so that the feds will never find them? Now, that may blow me away, and I may write that down in my notes. And
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I've never had anything to. I may have had nothing to do with it all. You just told me those things, and I wrote a note down about that. They can get my notes, not because I'm in league with you to commit a crime, but because that would be prima facie evidence. My notes to a judge that you were trying to commit a crime using a lawyer, and you can't use a lawyer as your pawn to commit a crime any more than you can use anyone else as a pawn to commit a crime. But it's a very slippery slope. How do you show a judge that there's going to be something like that in my notes? How do you show a judge in a prima facie case that you were using a lawyer, not for some historical advice or how to deal with it, but to commit an ongoing crime? Like in Trump's case, right? The idea is that he got this subpoena and he didn't want to comply with it. And he didn't want to know what his rights were to not comply with it. He wanted to do this, this switcheroo, right? and to enter into a conspiracy, and that the lawyer knows a lot about what happened there. And the lawyer was actually used. The lawyer was used as a pawn to stand there and say, I have reviewed every single thing in this case. And yet he knows that when he came and this and that. Now you take the thing with the plucking. When he calls him and he says, look, I know you've got some stuff in your hotel room that you just got from Mar-a-Lago, and you're supposed to turn it over to the FBI tomorrow morning. But, go through it tonight and pluck out things that really hurt me. Come on. That is so obviously criminal, right? You don't have a right to have a guy pluck out documents that are to be turned over and that hurt you and that are under a subpoena because he got a law degree. So that's what they're up against. But that's going to be revisited. And the other thing that's going to delay it is this classified documents thing. That's a real thing. First, the lawyers have to get national security clearance. Now, I have one because I was an assistant U.S. attorney, but most attorneys have never dealt with issues like that or gotten a national security clearance.
So they literally have to do background checks on the attorneys and make sure that.
Yes, and they have to do it on. They have to do it on a very fast basis. Now, again, what the special counsel is going to do, because he's smart, is he's going to tell him, okay, Mr. Defense Attorney, you need to submit 3 more documents. And then the next day he's going to call up and he'd say, you haven't submitted the 3 documents yet. And then if it goes on like that, he's going to go to the judge and say, look, this is just another way to delay this thing. They're dragging their feet at getting their national security clearance. But once they have the national security clearances, if they don't get one, then they can't be the lawyer. That's just the way it works. And Trump had to go find 2 lawyers who had national security clearances. And the valet has said that with all of Trump's money and all the lawyers in America, he couldn't find a lawyer. And then he's going to come in the next day or 2. And I guess he's going to say he either found one or he's still looking. And the judge needs to clamp down because, as I say, it's this drumbeat of delay. But the case is not going to, your listeners, your viewers, this case is not going to go to trial. They have this judge who, no matter what she issued right now is the Speedy Trial Act. She has to set a date within 70 days. So she set a date within 70 days. Everybody's reporting, well, it looks like she's really moving it along. No, she's not. She had to set a date within 70 days. And now somebody, it's going to be the defense, is going to come forward and say, but wait, we need to file motions. We need to research them. It's going to take us 3 months to do it. You watch. That'll be what happens.
Wow. And those delays will all be granted. But the case, just to be clear, we're so out of time, but just in 30 seconds, this case will come to trial, won't it? Or it will be pled out?
It'll only get pled out, I think, if Trump has no political future. Then he'll have an interest in pleading out and making a deal in all of his pending criminal investigations. I don't think there's any.
Otherwise, it's trial on, but it'll be after the general election.
If he or a Republican ally win, there'll be a pardon. It'll never go forward at all.
Of course.
And then I think that he'll plead it out. If he doesn't become the president again, or some ally of his doesn't and pardon him, then I think he'll settle the case. I don't think we're ever going to see the great trial. It won't be People versus OJ, U.S. v. Trump in front of Judge Cannon. I don't think we'll ever come to trial. We won't be missing anything on TV because trials aren't televised. They're talking, Mark, though, about maybe having a video, an audio feed, so you can at least hear it audio. That's all very
extraordinary.
Nice. Yeah. That case is very unlikely to go to trial. And I don't think any chance it's going to go to trial. Trump doesn't want to lose the trial while he's running for president again. No way. No way. He'll delay the hell out of it.
He is so kind to spend time with us. You can find him on, as I say, programs, radio and television across the world. And here on Thursdays, the former federal prosecutor. He is David Katz. By the way, nice Mark Thompson show throw pillow, sir. Very strategically. And he's got the well-deserving of the merch. So thanks, David. See ya.
Good to be with you, Mark.
I've told you, it's never easy being in this business.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We are running behind. I wonder if we can just take a brief, maybe 3-minute news break. Kim, would you be cool with that? And then I want to bring Belinda on.
Yes, no? But yes, we can do that. But you're gonna have to close the marky mouth.
And people give me a hard time about about the way I talk to you. Wow, just unreal. You can get away with saying whatever you want, treating me however you want to. But then when I say one thing, just good-naturedly, I get the, how come you're giving Kim a hard time? Oh, my God, Kim, you were so rude to her. I'll close the marky mouth, as you put it.
I'm sorry.
And then I will, but let's do like a 3-minute newscast, and then what's the problem, Tony? You got a problem? You look like you have an issue. No? Okay.
No, you're just talking a lot for us to hurry up.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh my God.
Lord. Let's get it in, get it out, get it done. Straight up, straight in, no problem.
Do you know who I am?
I don't think people really do know who I am. I think we've lost track of that. Maybe we should do a show about that sometime. Belinda's It's the Planet Stupid is coming up. Smash the like button. We haven't asked you to do it. Smash it like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Throw me a thumbs up. It costs you nothing, and it makes such a big difference. Kim's News, and then It's the Planet Stupid next.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show, and here we go. Speeding through the news with reckless abandon, President Biden and Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India are expected to enter new partnerships on defense and technology during an official state visit at the White House. Speaking from the South Lawn, President Biden said the challenges of the 21st century will require India and the U.S. to work and to lead together. The Biden administration would like to improve ties between the U.S. and India to help counter growing aggression from China and from Russia. One former U.S. president, there he is, looking good, says the indictment of another former president really isn't the best message to send to world leaders. Former President Obama believes the indictment of former President Trump may suggest the U.S. is easing up on democratic rules. Former President Obama did acknowledge Trump's indictment sends a message that nobody is above the law. Well, we now know who bailed George Santos out of jail. The father and the aunt of the congressman have been revealed as the ones who secured his $500,000 bail. Attorneys for Santos unsuccessfully tried to block the judge from releasing their identities. Of course, Santos arrested in May on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and theft of public funds. There's a Sacramento City audit that shows video of a black 10-year-old girl being temporarily handcuffed by police, and kind of a still from that video there. Sacramento Office of Public Safety and Accountability released an audit this week about complaints against officers who made improper searches. The office says there needs to be a policy about handcuffing minors, since such a policy right now doesn't exist. Police were there at the home for a probation search related to firearms and a stolen car investigation. Handcuffed temporarily this 10-year-old little girl. Yesterday in San Francisco, police were involved in a chase that apparently ended with them crashing right into a building. That is what happened in San Francisco yesterday. The building in need of repairs today after a squad car plowed right through the front window. The crash happened during a chase in the Mission District last night. Injured one adult, one child. Officers say they were patrolling the area when they saw a car suspected in a crime. The driver got away, though. The building at 22nd and Valencia, badly damaged. And Bed Bath & Beyond lives on, even if its brick and mortar stores do not. You'll be glad to know Overstock is paying about $20 million for the bankrupt retailer's intellectual property and digital assets. The sale is pending final approval at a hearing next week.
What does that mean, intellectual property and digital assets? Are my coupons, are my 20% coupons still valuable or not?
This remains to be seen, but you could see the Bed Bath & Beyond name selling bed and bath items online in the future.
I see. Okay, I understand now.
And a very quick little story about Hasbro also bringing something back, a toy craze from the 90s, launching a new version of its Furby animatronic toy on Amazon Thursday to celebrate its 25th anniversary. How much will a Furby cost?
Fantastic. Yeah.
$70. Yeah, $70 for a Furby. That's right. Cough it up. It'll be available in stores nationwide July 15th after an almost 10-year absence. So there you go. Furby
Special.
for you. I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, I'm very unhappy with everything I've heard today on your show.
It is such a pleasure to have you here. By the way, many of you have asked Where did David Katz get the throw pillow? There's like one behind me, the Mark Thompson Show throw pillow. This is the Tenuta Winery. They have the Why Are You Yelling red and the Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson white. The mug, the cold or hot beverage container. You have the hoodie and the tote bag. It occurs to me that we need to send Belinda some of this stuff. But anyway, the bottom line is you can get it at getmarkmerch.com. You can have a throw pillow just like David Katz. Or you can have a mug just like David Katz has. There's that throw pillow. It's a great addition to every living environment. In fact, I've resolved that I am going to send one to the quite patient Belinda Waymouth, who will join us shortly for It's the Planet Stupid.
More It's the Planet Stupid.
No. It's the open for It's the Planet Stupid.
The planet
That's
Earth.
what I mean.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock.
Judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet Stupid. No. It's the planet Stupid.
Now, here she is. Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid, eco-journalist Belinda Waymouth. Belinda, good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening.
How are you?
We are well here. I will advise all of the stations along the Mark Thompson Show network that we might run a couple of minutes along as we spend a moment with Belinda. Belinda, you have talked about so many things on this show, and I see them coming up. There's a front page piece in the Chronicle today about gas stoves and the awfulness associated with them, worse than a lot of fossil fuel release, worse than smoking cigarettes if you're standing over a gas stove. It's like it's insane. I think about the portable nuke thing that's been in the news as well. Alternative energy's been in the news. So as we pass things back and forth, I pushed you a couple of pieces that I thought were interesting, and you can decide where we go today. Public lands, what's happening in Europe. Take us wherever you'd like.
Okay. Well, I love that you brought up the gas stoves, because I was going to say if you wanted to send me any merch, I'd love the pot holder to use with my new induction stove that I love.
Yes, the pot holder is a fine item, and you shall receive one.
Yeah, well, I'm and I have to tell it, I've said this before on the show, if we've got listeners who are thinking, oh, no, I love cooking with gas, the induction is just great and as responsive and as quick and all that stuff. And, it's what really strikes me this week. I mean, it sort of really has been for a while. We're in such a critical and also exciting time, as far as this transition to clean energy and knowing the importance and need of protecting biodiversity. But what's really happening and what we're really seeing playing out, particularly with all this news this week, is that, change doesn't come easily. And there's a ton of pushback. And it's really this sort of one step forward, one step back. And, I think in the US, it's a very stark sort of reflection of the political landscape, because it really comes, what we're seeing in Utah is we're seeing Republicans saying, hey, no, we don't like this good neighbor rule. We don't want to stop our coal-fired power plants from, providing us electricity. We don't care that, NOx, which is nitrogen dioxide or nitrogen oxides, which cause ozone. And, as we've talked about on the show, ozone, great up in the stratosphere where it protects us from the sun's power. But down here, at the, level that we humans live at, ozone is terrible. It's air pollution. And, what Utah is saying, we don't care if that air pollution is drifting over into neighboring Colorado and killing people. So it's this, the good neighbor rule is important. We shouldn't, a state shouldn't be able to pollute its neighbors. And we are transitioning away from coal. But we've got this,
This is a big story. I don't mean to interrupt, but this is a big story that what Belinda's talking about. The state of Utah is essentially firing up these plants, and the nitrogen oxide talk about drifts over into Colorado, and it produces this toxic brew. And so environmental groups are saying, hey, this ain't cool. And Colorado's saying, we're done with this. Why should we be choking down your pollutants, your toxic pollutants in our state?
Yeah. Well, and the thing that we're seeing here is, when I talk about the sort of the push-pull, it's playing out on the, the actual, landscape of the country and our lives. And you've got the government, the federal government enacting, policies that are, good for us and moving in the right direction. And obviously states' rights are huge. And this is a vast country and it's 340, million people. And states' rights are important. But when you get a state, pushing back on federal policy that makes sense and is for our, the good of people, it's sort of like, how can we move forward if we're always going to be, in some, kind of legal fight? And, so yeah, we've got this, Utah saying, no, we don't want to comply with the good neighbor rule. We don't care about people in Colorado. And you've got the Biden administration, saying, no, this is what we should be doing. And then a state saying, well, no, we don't want to do that. We want to keep burning. So it's just, it's sort of madness because, we have to make these changes, but they don't come easily. We're not all behind them. And a lot of it plays along political, lines. And, a lot of Republicans, want the status quo. And it's really amazing when you think about, conservation or climate change coming down to what your political affiliation is. That's nuts. This is about, the survival and, of us on planet Earth. And so we should all be behind these policies that are going to do us.
Let me just put some details on this, though, because this is interesting. Utah has 4 coal-fired power plants that could potentially be affected by this good neighbor rule that Belinda's talking about. 2 Rocky Mountain plants, the Intermountain Power Project, which operates the state's largest coal-fired power plant. And they've announced their plans to close the coal units and move to natural gas and hydrogen. The other plant is the Bonanza Power Plant near Vernal, which serves rural electrical cooperatives in Utah and adjoining states. Now, the governor of Utah has said what Belinda's talking about, which is that Colorado's saying, hey, this good neighbor rule, you cannot fire up all these plants and then expect us to choke down this air. They're saying that it is a power grab, that it's an attempt to move a Democrat. They're playing the politics of it, Belinda, which I think you so correctly identify. We will not stand by as the Biden administration, this is a quote from the governor, encroaches on Utah's reasonable, responsible, and realistic approach to powering our state. Now, the senator from Utah, who is a Democrat, who's worked in the renewable energy industry, opposed this lawsuit and said that he's sympathetic to the argument that clean energy takes time. We can't just retire our baseload resources overnight. But he said it's a planning issue, not a technology issue, which sort of suggests we will get to it. We'll get to alternative energy, but we're not there yet. What is your take on that? I mean, is it just so much chatter, or are they in the process of changing?
Well, the fact is some of, when they're talking about, hey, we're going to be moving away from coal and to natural gas, and even, no, it's no better. And, that brings up what's happening in California and how we keep on, prolonging the life of our natural gas-fired power plants, even though we're seen as this environmental leader, but we see it as the only way that we can keep the lights on and the air conditioners going. And the fact is, if we keep doing that and putting the greenhouse gases up into the atmosphere, we're going to keep heating up the planet and need more air conditioners, and they're super, energy gobbling. And we just keep ourselves in this, sort of same, I mean, we're on a hamster wheel. But I think what's, the thing about Utah is, what they're talking about is, you have to if you're going to be burning, coal or natural gas, you have to be, harnessing or, stopping the pollutants from that burning of fossil fuels from getting out into the atmosphere. So if you have a coal-fired power plant, you have to make it a clean one. Well, that's a no-brainer. Of course you do. And you have to, put that technology, into play, and that technology is there. And the fact that they've already put, earmarked $2 million for this legal fight, use the money to make, if you're going to keep burning, dirty fossil fuels, put the money towards making it, as clean as you possibly can. So, I find these arguments and this posturing, it's just this thing, and we've, talked about this, I mean, sort of to with blue in the face, Mark, is, it can't be, always profit over people, and that it's about, your shareholders and the bottom line and making money and, the cheapest, dirtiest fuel that you can use, you can sort of justify that. You can't anymore. And we see that. I mean, if you look at what's happening, I mean, Europe is already heading towards a super, super hot summer. California has got a reprieve this year because we got all this incredible precipitation, and we've got the snowpack, so we'll be able to use hydropower. And if there's a drought, we're sort of in a better position because of that. When the temperatures go up, but I think it's human beings don't like change, but it's going to happen anyway. And I think this sort of push-pull is sort of part of the growing pains of change. But the news that came out of Norway yesterday saying that the government is, going to open, their intention is to open up their national waters to deep sea mining. That, Mark, came one day after world leaders, including Norway, adopted a global treaty to protect oceans. Right. So I mean, literally my head is spinning. My head is spinning. It's, the good neighbor rule, totally makes sense. And if Utah was being polluted by Colorado and all their neighboring states, say it wasn't, a coal-fired power plant, say it was some other industry and there was some terrible, noxious pollution, drifting over into their state and poisoning their water supplies and, giving, everyone eczema or, some horrible skin rash, they'd be jumping up and down. Well, the fact is, this, fossil fuels have been doing this for decades. Now we know better. And, you can...
Well, still, the infrastructure's in place. It's a hard transition, but the transition has to be made. And as you say, we have kind of this death grip on the way we're doing it now. By the way, the Norway expansion that Belinda's talking about, the World Wildlife Fund said the deep seabed mining that Norway has planned, one of the worst environmental decisions the country has ever made. The government plans to open an ocean area larger than the UK to mining in the Arctic. This comes, as Belinda says, a day after countries, including Norway, officially, adopt that protect the ocean policy.
Yeah, it's completely crazy. And, the politics that are playing out, in the North Sea and around, the Arctic oceans as the ice melts. I mean, Putin is salivating at what, the melting of the sea ice is going to do as far as being able to mine and the shipping routes and what it's going to do for, his relationship with China. I mean, Hillary Clinton, when she was the Secretary of State during the Obama administration, she went up to look at, what was going to, what was happening in the North Sea and what this was going to mean for mining and shipping routes. But, we know better. We have all the information. So it's like, come on, people,
Yeah, I want to ask you just a quick thing I saw in the chat, and then we will have to wrap up. But I saw someone kind of, and I think it was maybe my comment that, or I think that you agreed with the gas versus coal. And I said, they're switching to natural gas. It's no better. And someone was sort of suggesting no better. Really? I don't think that's true. Like gas is, I mean, can you speak to that? You can go, well, we're getting rid of coal and we're going natural gas. Can you just speak, is it possible to speak to it briefly?
Well, look, natural gas, I mean, we call it natural gas to make it sound like it's good, but it's not. Natural gas is methane and ethane. Methane is, over its lifetime, 24 times more powerful than CO2 as a greenhouse gas. So it really heats up the planet. So natural gas is not the solution, and It can be, used and is better than coal because you can turn it on and off, whereas a coal-fired power plant has to burn all the time, whether you're using the electricity or not. You can't turn a coal-fired power plant off or on, and you can do that with natural gas. So that's one advantage. But really, we have to be using other power sources, not either of those two. And the pushing of both those, they're both fossil fuels, comes from the industry. The industry, pushes it. They want to keep using it. It's why fossil fuels are pushing plastic production so much right now. It's because it allows them to keep using, their ethane, which is a byproduct of, when we're, getting our oil out of the ground and refining it. You get all this, ethane, and you can make tons and tons of plastic. We have to wean ourselves off this carbon-rich energy source. We have to go to clean energy. It is happening. We're just having incredible growing pains, and we're seeing them play out everywhere. I get it. Change isn't easy.
Yeah.
It's game on.
The last thing I would say, I mean, that's so right, game on. And I see this occasionally, and I hear this all the time, is that the Earth is going to survive humans. Don't worry. The Earth's not going anywhere. The planet's going to be fine. We may be dead, but the planet's going to be fine. The planet isn't fine. We have this remarkable place with this remarkable balance, all of these wondrous ecosystems. This is such a gorgeous, delicate thing, and we've already begun to kill it. So when all of these species and these sensitive habitats are destroyed forever, already we've lost that Earth you're talking about. So don't tell me the Earth is going to be fine. The Earth's not fine. We're killing things right now. Why? Because technically the gravity of the Earth is going to continue, and so the Earth will continue in rotation and will continue in orbit. It'll be fine and stuff will regrow. Yeah, I get it. But don't you value the things that are here on Earth now? Some of these wondrous places and things and species and habitats. I don't mean to get on a soapbox, but it's such a facile thing to say, no, the Earth will be fine. Believe me. Oh, we're screwing it up, but the Earth will be fine. It's the things on the Earth that are the Earth. It just drives me crazy. Sorry, Belinda. I feel I've...
Why are you yelling?
I feel I brought the crowd down somehow, and I'm sorry. I want to... you so beautifully, though, describe a lot of these things that I feel can be attended to save the Earth, to save many of the things to which I've referred. So thank you for being here, and thank you for letting me rant. Belinda can be found across social media, and I want to record, Kim, a separate... I don't know what that is. A separate offering with Belinda about her experience with cancer. You know, she had this brutal run with cancer, and I think it's about to be birthed into some kind of presentation that she's going to do. And I'd love for our audience to get a preview of that before it does get out there. So Belinda Waymouth is at Belinda Waymouth, Waymouth. Belinda, thank you for being here.
Totally my pleasure. I will see you guys. I will talk to you guys on July 20th. I'm going to New Zealand tomorrow, so I will miss you.
Nice.
I will miss you.
Nice.
Yeah, going home to see my family, but back July 20th.
Great. Well, then that will be the plan. And when you get back, you're the potholder from the Mark Thompson merch store will be waiting for you. All right. So Belinda Waymouth, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Belinda.
That's
Bye,
good
Kim.
stuff.
More. It's the planet stupid.
No. It's the planet stupid.
Next time, only on the Mark Thompson Show.
What's the problem, Tony? What is it?
Update. You want to see a bit of the press conference going on right now?
Yeah, let's take the press. I guess they found this debris and they've established that it is debris from the vessel. So here we go. This is the live press conference, or a bit from it.
This morning, an ROV, or remote-operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor. The ROV subsequently found additional debris. In consultation with experts from within the Unified Command, the debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. Upon this determination, we immediately notified the families. On behalf of the United States Coast Guard and the entire Unified Command, I offer my deepest condolences to the families. I can only imagine what this has been like for them, and I hope that this discovery provides some solace during this difficult time. Additionally, we've been in close contact with the British and French consuls general to ensure that they are fully apprised and that their concerns are being addressed. The outpouring of support in this highly complex search operation has been robust and immensely appreciated.
It really is
amazing.
amazing.
We are grateful for the rapid mobilization.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I mean, that it was a remarkable mobilization is the last thing you were saying, of all of these assets from all around the world. It was quite extraordinary. And tomorrow, yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick recap. What we know is this remote operated vehicle found the tail cone of the Titan submersible on the seafloor right near the bow of the Titanic. The Coast Guard saying the debris is consistent with the loss of the pressure chamber, and they have notified the families.
It is at once, to use the overused word, closure. Also not completely unexpected. The more you learn, the more I think we anticipated something like this, but it is unquestionably a sad thing. So that's a wrap for today, though, and I think there will be additional questions about what happened, and I'm even seeing in the chat now questions about the assets brought to bear. Quick thanks to our super sticker contributor, Jackie Walker, today for a quick 20. Great show today, Mark. So much good information packed in. Thank you so much, Jackie. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you so much.
Also, Deborah, wow, that was a loud thank you so much. Deborah B for 10.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. Appreciate that. Daryl also.
Thank you so
much. Daryl Leffler, you're very kind. Jim Slayton for $9.99 for my first prostate MRI this morning. Straight up right in, no problem.
Straight up right in, no problem.
All right. Vicky's next over there on the Nikki Maduro channel.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for riding herd over the breaking news with us.
Bye-bye.
Tony, thank you. Kim, thank you. And until tomorrow, everyone. Bye-bye.